Hello and welcome. We are here on the sidelines of the India Energy Week 25 at Yashoguni, New Delhi. Right now, I'm joined by Mr. Vivek Bhatia, who's the MD and CEO of TKIL Industries, and he'll just give us a sense of what he's picking up at the event here. Mr. Bhatia, thank you so much for your time and talking to us. First up, the thoughts on the environment, the energy that you're picking up from industry professionals, policymakers. What is it that you're picking? What's the enthusiasm like for the future of India's energy policy?
Well, firstly, thanks for having us on the show. And I must say, the atmosphere at IEW is fantastic. It's electric. There is a great immersion happening, as I see it, between industry, between policymakers, between international stakeholders, and lots of interesting conversations. Hydrogen seems to be the flavor, so we saw a bus that was hydrogen powered, right? So we have vehicles which are on display. We have consulting firms. We have the large OMCs here. We have all the players in the industry, and I think there are a lot of very, very relevant and interesting conversations going on, which gives me a lot of confidence that we are on the right track with regards to the thought process on the India energy stack.
Right.
And we are thinking about the large solutions, but equally we are thinking about the off-grid and micro solutions as well. So I think it's a very, very promising atmosphere.
Sure. So, Mr. Bhati, one of the things that I picked up from the Prime Minister's recorded message yesterday and what the Minister said in his opening remarks was that balance that India's energy policy is trying to make between, transitioning towards clean energy, but at the same time, ensuring energy security through diversification in its energy mix. And one of the big themes in the economic survey this year was securing energy supplies. So, what's your take on it? How's your company looking at it? And how do we strike that fine balance when we are talking about both energy transition and energy security?
I think it's a very, very important topic, and if we look at every major power that has emerged in the world, it has been on the back of energy security and energy independence. And petrodollar, I don't have to describe how fundamental that was for the rise of America. And I think the Prime Minister is spot on when he says that India really has to look at this very critically. And I think the building blocks are there. For a long time, it's been coal and then crude oil, and both of those commodities we've been importing in significant amounts. At least on coal, the government has been talking about and working very, very hard towards driving self-reliance, and I think we're on the right track there. But definitely with conventional fuels, there is always the challenge that how do you abate carbon emissions, how do you get into the right side of sustainability. And that, I think, as much as it is a challenge, it is equally a fantastic opportunity for India to leapfrog all the challenges that we have been facing. Already we've seen it on the solar side. Today, solar power is cheaper than what you can get from any other means. But equally, I would say we are on the cusp of the next revolution, which will be the hydrogen revolution.
Okay.
And there, we are playing our part as an industry player. So TKIL Industries very recently made a strategic investment in a Swiss company called So High Tech, where we are very proud to announce that we are bringing the best available green hydrogen technology to India, and it is the PCR technology, which is significantly more efficient than any electrolyzer combination you can have. To put things in context, when you have a combination of a SPV farm with an electrolyzer for the same land footprint, our generation of hydrogen is 2.5 times, which is definitely a big step improvement in achieving a competitive LCOH. And even on LCOH, there is this perception that hydrogen is very expensive, it is very complex to do, but that's really not the case when you look at the numbers in a bit more detail. So to put some perspective on that, for an LCOH of $4 a kg of hydrogen, already you can work out that it is equivalent to a 60 to 70% discount on a per kilometer basis when you're driving a car with diesel or petrol.
Okay.
So, what does that mean? That means that if you have hydrogen that is available, and if you have vehicles that can run on hydrogen, it would be the natural choice of people to adopt hydrogen vehicles. And all the numbers I'm saying right now are without any kind of subsidies.
Right.
So, given the push, the thrust, the policy framework that we are working towards, and the emphasis that the government is doing, I think this can really, really be big. And it can have a transformative effect on India's energy independence. And I don't have to underscore what that would mean from the broader economic perspective.
But in your assessment, given the 3 years since the hydrogen policy came out, you think that the demand side has been able to catch up the supply side?
Well, these are all complex transitions,
yeah.
right? Even when you are talking about such transformative changes, it takes time because so many stakeholders have to come together to make it happen. So even with the EV ecosystem, it took some time. You needed to have charging stations available. Right. You needed to have the automotive manufacturers, both for vehicles as well as for large trucks, to come up with those solutions. The good thing is the hydrogen vehicles are available. The question is, how do we make them available in India, right? On the other side, we have progressed very well over the last 3 years in giving confidence to everybody in the country, to all policymakers, to all vehicle manufacturers, that we can put a hydrogen ecosystem on the ground. Now we need that final push. I think where we can really make a big step forward is if the government comes up and says that these are 3 or 5 or 10 highways where every 20 kilometers you will have a station which can deliver hydrogen.
Right.
When that happens, I can tell you, simply based on economics, people will be very happy to switch to hydrogen with logistics, with personal vehicles, because it eliminates the biggest concern people have with EVs, which is range. Right. On paper, you have certain number of kilometers, but when you're actually driving, the real world conditions are extremely different. And then, even so, you can reconcile yourself to that, but your charging time takes ultimately significant more time than what you're used to. With hydrogen, it's one of the vehicles over here at IEW says on a 5.5 kg tank you can run 600 kilometers, which even if you discount, at least you are crossing 550 kilometers. And on the other side, it's less than 2 minutes to charge up your tank.
Sure.
So that, I think, will be very, very transformative.
The exhibition halls that we see here, it's mainly the conventional sectors, oil and gas, and how they are transitioning towards net zero decarbonization. Now, since you're very closely connected to sectors like mining, cement, how important, or rather how challenging it is for these sectors, the hard to abate sectors, to focus on their decarbonization journey. If you could shed some light on that.
Yes, I think it's very important to bear in mind that we have a certain history, we have a certain ecosystem, we have certain industries, and I think successful transition takes everybody along.
Yes.
You can't suddenly say that a significant part of the economy which was working on conventional technologies will be completely left to die. So I think the right solution will be which allows and brings on board all the legacy players into that as well. And the good news is, whatever we are talking about with solar or with hydrogen or with the new age technologies also enable that transition. So if you talk about mining, then definitely I think a first step in mining becoming green, and by the way, mining is 7 to 8% of global emissions. It's a huge part of it. So with electrification, you have the opportunity to bring in green power. With hydrogen-based equipment, you have the ability to bring in, large mining equipment which are completely green. So you can actually finally have a path to make mining green. Similarly, on cement, there are now technologies such as oxyfuels, which are being under, pilot plant demonstration and further development in various places around the world, with which you can have carbon capture. And when you combine that with green hydrogen, again, you're into a circular carbon economy. Then you are going into carbon to chem. So again, cement, which is equally a 7 to 8% emitter of carbon dioxide, you have a path to making green cement. And similarly, if I talk about steel, for example, we are having a lot of conversations with steel players, and through the DRI route, there's a well-defined path where you can use green hydrogen and come to green steel. So definitely, I would say the good news is there are now clear paths that can take you to a zero emission or zero carbon footprint. And the economics on the supply side are also getting more and more attractive as we speak by the day, especially with what I mentioned on the PCR technology. We have, I would say, the best LCOH in the country today. And with that, I think the future is bright.
Sure. Very quick last question. Prime Minister is in United States, and the as Oil Minister yesterday said that there is a possibility of discussion on nuclear cooperation. This year's budget again opening it up for the private sector. How do you see the private sector reacting to this development, and in general, what's their understanding of how this sector will pan out?
Well, if I look at the Indian economy and the India energy stack, I think we have enormous diversity. And given the size and nature of the Indian economy, we need all solutions on board. Right? So, with that, I think there is always going to be space for all of these technologies in the entire ecosystem to contribute. So I personally welcome it. I think there is a need for us to talk about hydrogen. There's a need for us to talk about solar, wind, and definitely nuclear. The only challenge with nuclear is that it is long cycle, and there are all these perceptions about nuclear, around safety, and we had that incident in Japan, which everybody still remembers. So I think it requires a very high degree of control to deliver it safely. And that is where I would say the new age technologies of hydrogen and solar, etc. score, because you can do it safely, you can do it at a mass level. With our technology, you can be off-grid as well, so you can really go remote. And then with things like CBG, which is another part on what we are working, I think you can really take a village ecosystem and make it completely independent. And then you avoid the high cost of taking a grid to a remote location, right? So you can really empower those standalone places. And then with energy, the whole world comes to you, because you need energy to be connected to the internet, you need energy to have a better lifestyle and do all kinds of things. So I would say definitely there is room for all technologies in the energy basket of India, and we have to engage in that. I think we can't say that we have only one rigid path going forward. I think we have to take all of these and have that in our basket and work with it.
Sure. Thank you so much, Mr. Bhatia.
Thanks.
Pleasure talking to you.
Likewise.
Thank you.